Ready to ditch that diet roller coaster, you know the one I mean, and like really discover a whole new way to enjoy food.
I hear you.
This deep dive, we're tossing out the rule book. We're going deep into, you guessed it, mindful eating.
And that's what's so cool about this approach. It's not about, restriction or like deprivation. It's about, well, we're going to explore how it helps you tune into like your body's own wisdom and rediscover that joy of eating.
Yeah. And we've got a great stack of resources lined up for this one, including a lecture on mindful eating practices, some really cutting-edge research on the brain science behind it.
Oh, cool.
And even some personal anecdotes, those stories that really bring it to life.
I like it when we have those. What I find so interesting is how mindful eating, it draws upon, this ancient wisdom, but is so incredibly relevant, like today, for all of us.
That's a great point, because when people hear mindful eating,
Right.
it's almost like this new age thing.
Right.
But it's really not. This practice has roots in, get this, Buddhist mindfulness traditions.
Centuries. Going back centuries.
Yeah, going way back.
It's about, like, bringing awareness and presence to everything we do, which includes eating. And that is powerful stuff.
Totally. So let's unpack this. What are we talking about here? What are the core principles of mindful eating? And then how do those actually translate into real life?
Okay, so at its heart, it's about bringing your full awareness to the experience of eating, like without judgment.
Okay.
So that means like savoring every single bite, noticing the flavors, the textures, the aromas, and really paying attention to how your body actually feels as you eat.
So it's the opposite of like scarfing down a sandwich at your desk while you're answering emails.
Yeah,
but you're really present.
Precisely. Yes. It's like shifting from mindless consumption to mindful nourishment.
Yeah, and that's got to be a game changer, especially now. I mean, it's like we're constantly bombarded with distractions.
All the time. Our sources really highlight how modern life, with its fast food and on-the-go eating, it leads to this disconnect between our minds and bodies.
Oh, 100%. We've all been there, right? You're mindlessly munching on chips, binge watching your favorite show, and then, oh yeah, the whole bag is gone. I didn't even taste it.
The classic example. And the research shows it can have some consequences that are kind of surprising.
Like what?
Well, one, it can lead to, overeating, weight gain. When we eat mindlessly, our brains, they just don't register those fullness cues as well.
Ah, interesting.
So we end up, eating more than our body actually needs.
So by like paying attention more, being more aware when we eat, we're kind of retraining our brain.
Yeah.
To recognize those signals again.
Exactly. You said it perfectly. It strengthens the prefrontal cortex. And that's the part of your brain, that's responsible for decision-making, impulse control, all that good stuff.
So we're not just changing our habits, we're actually like rewiring our brains.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like how you put that.
But how does that translate into like the real world?
Oh, okay. So studies show mindful eating can be incredibly effective for weight management.
Really?
And here's the thing. It's not about like, deprivation or counting calories. It's about really tuning into your body's natural hunger and fullness cues.
That just makes sense, right? Instead of relying on external rules and restrictions, you're learning to trust your body.
You got it.
Your body's own wisdom.
And that can be so empowering. And it goes way beyond just weight.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Mindful eating, it's also been linked to like improved digestion, reduced bloating, potentially even relief from conditions like IBS.
Wow. I knew our gut and brain were connected, but I had no idea mindful eating could have that big of an impact. It's like mindful eating, it's this like secret weapon we all have for both our physical and our mental well-being.
I like that. You're right. It's really about cultivating like a healthier relationship with food, understanding ourselves better.
Yeah. Okay, so this is all super fascinating, but part of me, the skeptical side of me, wonders if it's even possible.
Oh, I know.
To be mindful in like today's world.
Yeah.
We're bombarded. Processed foods, sugary drinks, tempting treats everywhere.
It's true. And our sources actually talk about that. They actually call it like the mindful minefield. Like, trying to navigate a world where food it's like almost engineered to make us eat too much.
Yeah, it's like we're being set up to like fail almost.
Almost. But the thing is, these foods, they're designed to be, hyper palatable.
Yeah. Triggering
those reward centers in the brain, making it hard to stop, even when, frankly, you're full.
Feel seen?
But that's where mindful eating, that's where it becomes so important.
Okay, so how do we fight back then? How do we make those conscious choices
Yeah.
when you're faced with, the donut box?
One strategy, our expert, they suggest becoming aware of those triggers. So what situations, what emotions lead you to make those maybe not so healthy choices?
It's stress eating. Right.
Could be.
When I'm stressed, that's when the chips come out.
Really common one. And once you can identify it, you can, develop healthier ways to cope. So instead of reaching for those chips, maybe it's taking a walk, calling a friend, some deep breathing.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
It's finding like those healthier ways to kind of nourish ourselves, right?
Yes.
Both physically and emotionally.
Yes, exactly. And that actually brings us to another really interesting point in all of this. It's the intersection of mindful eating and, diet culture.
Ooh, yeah. This is where it gets really interesting. Because mindful eating is all about like tuning into your body, letting go of those rules. But diet culture is almost the opposite.
It can be, totally. Some people even argue that diet culture has kind of co-opted mindful eating, taking these principles and twisting them to fit into that same old narrative of restriction, of weight loss, all of that.
And honestly, that can be damaging, right? Especially for people who struggled with, disordered eating disorders.
Of course. And it's so important to remember this is not about deprivation. Mindful eating is about creating a healthy, positive relationship with food, whatever your size, whatever your shape.
It's about making peace with food, with our bodies.
Yes, 100%. That's what it's about. And that can be so liberating for people. And our sources, they kind of dig into this other really important aspect here. It's the role of culture and privilege in how we relate to food.
Yeah. Because, what works for one person doesn't work for everybody.
Exactly.
We have to be really sensitive to that.
Yeah, for example, a lot of times mindful eating emphasizes cooking at home, knowing your ingredients, right? But that's not accessible to everyone. Some people have financial constraints, they live in food deserts. It's harder to access those fresh ingredients.
Yeah, and it's just a good reminder, right? We have to think about all those systemic factors that play into our food choices.
Exactly. It's not as simple as just, choosing to eat healthy, right?
Right, exactly.
And then there are cultural traditions, right? Celebrations, family gatherings. Food is such a huge part of so many cultures and religions. And mindful eating shouldn't mean that you have to abandon those traditions. It's about finding ways to bring mindfulness into those in a way that feels, authentic to you.
So how do we do that then? Like, how do we honor those traditions but still practice mindful eating?
Well, our expert, they suggest really focusing on those principles of awareness, of non-judgment. So, for example, you're at a family gathering. Instead of just piling your plate high, take a second. Savor each dish. Think about the aromas, the flavors, the memories even that come with those foods.
It's like finding that sweet spot where mindfulness, it's like adding to it instead of taking away.
You got it. And that takes us to, I think, a really key question. How do we actually do this? How do we put this all into practice? What are the steps, the tangible things people can do to make this, a part of their lives every day?
That's what I want to know. Because I'm sure, people listening are ready to ditch the diet books and find that joy in eating. It's funny, right? We think of mindfulness and it's this like big thing. But our expert, they actually say it's really about those small steps. Like, what is it? A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Right. You don't have to change your whole life overnight. Even just one mindful meal a day, that can make a difference.
Okay, so where do we start? What are some of those baby steps? What can people listening do today to bring a little more of this mindful eating into their lives?
Okay, so one really good strategy is creating kind of this mindful eating ritual. So before you even take a bite, pause, take a couple deep breaths, and just kind of tune into your senses. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you feel? Just that.
I love that. Like a reset button. Before you dive in, it doesn't have to be this big thing, right?
No, not at all.
Just a moment. To be present.
Exactly. And then as you're eating, just pay attention to each bite. Chew slowly. Taste those flavors. Notice the textures. Yeah. Maybe even put your fork down between bites. Just be there with it.
It is amazing how often we're just shoveling food, not even tasting it.
It's true. We're so used to multitasking, rushing, and we miss out on the joy of it all.
And I've always struggled with the mindless snacking.
Yeah.
It's my hand has a mind of its own, reaching for the chips, the cookies. Any advice for that?
Oh, totally. Mindful snacking just as important. So before you grab that snack, just pause.
Yeah.
Check in. Are you actually hungry? Or is it boredom, stress, just habit?
Yeah.
You know,
Because sometimes we eat for, like, every other reason, besides actually being hungry.
it's true. And if it's not actual hunger, maybe there's something else you can do. That's not food. That meets that need. A quick walk, call a friend, put on some music.
So much of it really is, like, about that self-awareness, isn't it? Our
Totally.
bodies, emotions, our habits.
Mindful eating, it's like this journey
Hmm.
of self-discovery. It's learning to listen to your body and honor it.
This has been so eye-opening, but before we wrap up, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, self-compassion. Because it's so easy to get caught up in, like, I have to do this perfectly, and then it just feels overwhelming.
Absolutely. It's not about perfection. It's a practice. And like anything you practice, there are going to be good days and bad days, and that's fine.
So no beating ourselves up if we, have an off day, we slip up.
Nope. Instead of like dwelling on it, get curious. Like what happened? What triggered you? What can you learn from that?
It's turning those failures into, like, information
Exactly.
to help us grow.
Yes. And remember, every meal, it's a fresh start.
Love that. Letting go of the guilt. Embracing the journey. This has been great. Our deep dive into mindful eating, the science, the practical tips, the challenges even.
It's not just another diet. It's about creating a healthier relationship with food, with ourselves, happier, more mindful.
That's it, right? So as you go about your day, think about it. Find one small way to bring a little more mindfulness into your eating. Savor that cup of coffee, really look at your lunch, appreciate the colors, or share a meal with someone you love. No distractions, just that connection.
To savoring life, one bite at a time.
Until next time, everyone, happy and mindful eating.